Good morning and happy Wednesday. Happy week one. Welcome to the football season 2024. This is the Iowa Prep Sports Prep Football Huddle. This is Jeff Linder. Got JJ, got KJ, and it looks like we got a little bit of Hercules there behind KJ's shoulder there. So
always like including him.
No cool pets here. Mine's cashed out on the floor. So couple things to touch on here right away. JJ broke some news a day or two ago about the new heat precautions from the Iowa High School Athletic Association. I guess we might as well jump into that right away, JJ. What'd you learn?
Well, the IHSA and I think a number of other states are the heat safety protocols have, I guess, kind of changed a little bit in that they are using what they are calling wet bulb global temperature, and it's a little gauge basically, and it takes into account air temperature, humidity, dew point, sunlight, any weather factor you could possibly think of, and it gives you a actual reading of a temperature, and then there is a chart, literally a chart. If it's anything like 79.8 degrees or warmer, then there are some protocols that everyone has to go through, and it just depends on how hot it is, as far as players have to take certain amount of water breaks per certain amount of time. If it gets too hot, you can't be in full uniform. There's a range of temperature where you can, be in helmets and pads only, but shorts. Then there's a range of temperature where you can't be in football uniform whatsoever, just, shorts and t-shirts basically. And then when you get to, I can't even remember what it was now, 90, whatever it was, 90 plus degrees basically, you cannot practice outside at all. So that's kind of obviously the hottest few days we've had here this summer. That's what everybody was running into, and it just happened to come in preparation for week one. So you had to go out, and it was less than 90 degrees, and if that meant 5 o'clock in the morning, as some schools did, so be it. If that meant 8 o'clock at night, so be it. If that meant trying to find some sort of indoor facility somewhere to practice in, so be it. If that meant having to be in your gymnasium and trying to throw together a practice, so be it. So it was interesting that it's all for the safety of the kids, and it's very uniform now. I mean, it's very specific. There's no guesswork whatsoever for schools as far as when a temperature gets to a certain degree, you can't do that. So, and from that aspect, I think it's pretty good, right guys? It's all about the safety of the kids. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. Just, everybody, like I said, there's no guesswork now. You take your little temperature gauge or wet bulb global temperature thing outside, you push a button, it gives you a reading. Okay, this is what we can and can't do. And it's not just football, obviously. It's what do we have outside? Cross country, right, Jeff? And golf, right, KJ?
Golf.
So
yep.
Yeah, it's I like it. I don't mind it, and I don't think most of the coaches have too many issues with it. Although a couple that I talked to were like, I'm old school, but it's, you don't want anyone literally dying because of being out in heat and not being maybe hydrated as much as they should. So,
and I think the fact that it is pretty cut and dry, it's a black and white situation to where I think coaches can accept and adapt to it. if there's consistency to the measurement. You know what I mean?
Sure.
As long as you kind of take out some of the subjectivity to where one team ends up practicing outside while the other team doesn't, say on 42nd Street, when the readings have got to be about the same within a mile of each other. One team's practicing and one isn't. I think that's when you have maybe somebody going, yeah, the system isn't right. But I can't remember which coach you talked to. I thought brought up a really good point that, over the last few years, there have been things that have popped up, especially with COVID, and things that you could do and things you couldn't do, and you just had to adapt and adjust. It's just another example of that, and coaches will.
Oh, absolutely.
In 2 weeks, it won't be a factor anymore. Maybe next week. So, we'll live with it now. Fortunately, they rolled the whole season back this year. So, last week would have been week 1, and this would be week 2 coming up. So, I guess we'll be complaining when it's week 12 and it's wind chill factor 5 below. So
it doesn't apply to games. Games are as and how that is, right? Water breaks literally every 5 minutes, right? Breaks on the field. That will continue. So sorry, we can move on now.
No, that's good. Just going to run through some of the week 0 games in 8-player. And then KJ, I will have you talk about your experience over at BGM with that offensive showcase. Kind of, I don't know, maybe if there was a team that made a statement in week 0, it might've been Belle Plaine. They beat Clarksville, which we had number 8 in our preseason ballot, 46 or 48-20. Waco beat Central City 51-36. Calamus Wheatland 46-6 over English Valleys. Baxter over Springville 58-49. Montezuma beat HLV 64-0. And then the game you were at, KJ, at Brooklyn, probably surprised it ever ended. Iowa Valley outscored BGM 76-67, which wasn't as high scoring as their playoff game a few months ago.
You mentioned I don't think we thought we'd get out of there before Saturday during the first quarter when they combined for 53 points. I mean, it was one of those games where coming in, you knew you had 2 outstanding players on both sides of the fence, with Bo Burns, who had phenomenal numbers last year, and kind of picking up where he left off. And then you had Nolan Kriegel, who had really good numbers last year, and now, another year, more mature, stronger, faster, and even more of a centerpiece of that offense. And you knew you were going to have, a track meet a little bit with those 2 athletes for their respective teams, but they just kind of proved how good they were, and it was no surprise that they just kind of battled back and forth. Iowa Valley's defense did a good job kind of limiting Burns in the first half, but then in the second half, BGM came out, got things going, but Nolan Kriegel just ran roughshod. I think after a turnover on the first play by BGM, Kriegel ran in from 8 yards out. Two plays later, BGM scored on a Burns run. I mean, it was just like that all game long. And you have 2 phenomenal athletes between Bo Burns and Nolan Kriegel. But I think, especially in the first half, Iowa Valley showed a little bit more strength on the defensive side. And I think that both of these teams are going to be teams to reckon with throughout the year. I think they're both pretty solid and explosive 8-player programs.
Yeah, they're both playoff teams, don't you think?
Oh, I certainly would think so, especially when BGM I think has a lot of holes to kind of fill from last year, so they're only going to get better as the season goes along. I think Iowa Valley is a little bit more experienced, and they're not just a one-trick pony either. They've got some guys that can play right along with Kriegel, Caleb Hack. He's a big target. There was a play where Hack reeled in a touchdown pass. I think it might have been like a 27-yard touchdown pass where the Brooklyn defender or BGM defender did everything. It was just about perfect defense on the play, but Hack is like 6'7", and can run really well. And he was just able to reach over the D-back and pluck the ball out of the air for an easy touchdown. And it's just like, it's kind of unfair. Kriegel did show the ability to kind of throw the ball well. And they do spread it around a little bit. Even though he rushed for like 34 yards and or 34 carries, I had him for 305 yards, and he threw for another 121 with 10 touchdowns total. But he's got some weapons, and they've got some people that can kind of take some of the load off his shoulders too. So I think both of these two teams are going to be good, especially as the season progresses.
The thing that might be most startling about Kriegel is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but he's a sophomore, right?
Yes, just a sophomore. So, he came in with a good freshman campaign, and I tell you what, he's even better. So, we've seen some really good individuals over the years in 8-player. Don't want to compare him to anybody in particular, but I think he's just another individual that I think can carry a team, and he's going to be pretty impressive. And even more so as he gets more experience and gets older.
Is he pretty good sized?
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers on me right now, but I'm guessing he's probably about 6'1". His dad, Jeremy, is a wrestling coach and an assistant football coach. He's a pretty tall and got a big frame to him. And I think Nolan resembles him quite a bit.
Okay.
I'll see if I can look up his actual dimensions here, but yeah, right. He's a good sized kid.
Okay. We started doing our actually, I guess one other thing, I don't mean to weigh you down with too many things here at once, KJ, but you did kind of the lead into the season on all the area coaches, new area coaches, coaches going from school to school, a little bit of that. Learn any trends with any of that, or is it just one of those years where there's kind of a multitude of that more than most?
Yeah, I think I was exchanging messages with KJ about this. I think a lot of it is just coincidental. I don't think there's a lot of specific reasons why we saw this shuffling of coaches, and but it is a pretty large number. I mean, I think our area alone in Eastern Iowa has 17 coaches that are with their programs for the first year. Some of it has to deal with just one coach leaving a program to go to another, and then somebody stepping in. Like Lance Peterson, going from Mount Vernon to Clear Creek, Amana, cited family reasons. I think a lot of people know that he lives, I believe, in the Marengo area, so Tiffin is a lot closer. I think he had about 2 hours of driving back and forth that took away from family time. So that was something. So when you have him leave, then you have Brad Meester step in. So that kind of inflates the numbers a little bit. Eric Addy takes over at Cedar Rapids, Washington, with Maurice Blue leaving to be an assistant at Prairie and reuniting with Kyle Knock. Down at West Branch with the new head coach there. Kind of a big difference from where he was in the Chicagoland area. John Nestor coming from some national powers. In Mount Carmel, I believe, was one of them in the Chicago area, and now taking over West Branch, which has really been, that's been a community surrounded by Butch Peterson over the years, and his disciples as well, who took over last year. So you've got somebody coming from a big fish to a small pond, and somebody outside of the community, which kind of a culture shock from Chicagoland, small town Iowa. But that's going to be one I think is really intriguing to see how that meshes and how that develops. You had Jason Dumont at Regina, who stepped down, and believed he was supposed to be out of coaching, and then becomes a head coach at West Liberty. You've got Dustin.
And they play each other week 1.
Yeah, they'll face one another, like you mentioned. There, I believe, at West Liberty, in West Liberty's new facilities there, and Dustin Ellsbury, who he mentioned, he spent 4 years as an assistant under Marv Cook and Dumont, and now getting ready to lead the Regina program. So there's a lot of different dynamics, and then of course you've got Vinton Schellsburg, which not really a storied tradition at all. Not really a lot of team success there at Vinton Schellsburg football-wise. And what do? They go out and they bring in a state championship coach in Joe Hadachek, who had been away from head coaching, even though he was never really away from the game. They kind of courted him, and he coached middle school for a few years. He admitted when he stepped away at Union that he was just burned out. He didn't have any energy for it. And then they're like, well, we need somebody to help out with middle school. We at least just kind of help out. So for 3 years, he just was kind of maybe an advisor for the coaches on the middle school level. And then they got him to be a line coach as an assistant last year at Union. And he said that really re-energized him. And then when Vinton Schellsburg came calling, it was something that he was excited about doing and getting ready to rebuild. We have a lot of different circumstances around all these new coaches.
Right. I'll ask both of you guys, of all the new coaches, who do you think's walking into the best situation this year? And there's a bunch of them. Who do you think's going to be successful right away?
I guess the two that come to mind to me, Lance Peterson at Clear Creek, and Dustin Ellsbury at Regina. But the one I think we'll all agree on this, by the way we've talked before, I think the dual coaches at Linn-Mar might be getting the reins of a sleeper out there.
I think so.
There's some individual talent out there that they could really make some hay out there right now.
Yeah.
So
I'll agree with that, and then I'll go to you, JJ. I'm doing the preview on Linn-Mar, and I've kind of got a mathematical system when I do my rankings at the beginning of the season, and sometimes you look at that and you think, whoa, and Linn-Mar was one of those woes that as much as they've got coming back, that they could be really, really good. Sorry, JJ, I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But I think you nailed it right on the head, Jeff. It's the thing that really kind of bamboozled their season last year was injuries.
Right. And
injuries do very key personnel. And it was constant. It wasn't just 1 week or 2 weeks. I mean, it just seemed like every other week they were losing a really key player. And like you guys said, they got a ton of people back, and it's new head coaches and it's new co-coaches, but they've been in the program. So I would think that not a whole ton would change. Linn-Mar's, I think, definitely is a team that is really kind of under the radar state-wise, and that could really make some hay. And KJ, I like Lance Peterson's situation at Clear Creek as well. I think that's kind of a sleeping giant of a program, down there, and yeah, I think we hit it on the head.
The one thing with Clear Creek, though, they have such a tough schedule that their record may not really reflect how good they are or have played, just because their schedule is going to be so tough, especially I think the first half of the season.
That first game, that opener against Marion, and I think JJ is covering that Friday. That's a big game for both teams, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Marion, what did they I think that's going in tomorrow's paper. Actually, I'm going to post it online when we get done here, but Marion's been literally number 17 2 years in a row in Class 4A, and 16 make the playoffs. And actually they were 16th 2 years ago, right? And got passed up by Cedar Rapids, Washington, who was right behind them because Washington beat Marion in the regular season. So huge game for Marion. I think just to kind of set the tone for this season, and obviously a huge one for Clear Creek with the new coach and everything. And one other, I think Brad Meester at Mount Vernon is going to do a great job too, guys. I think he played a key role. I think offensively there, to begin with. That's always a great program. He's an NFL guy, so he's going to get the attention of everybody. That's another one that I guess I forgot that I think is going to step in and have success right away.
Is there a coaching change that really surprised you more than any other?
Jeff, what do you think?
As far as a hire or somebody leaving?
Just the transition, the change in general. For me, I think Liberty, with James Harris, Scott Chandler is now the head coach at Iowa City Liberty. Liberty's had good seasons. I don't really know the reasoning or the circumstances of all that. That was one that kind of caught me off guard, and then I didn't realize until looking through some of the programs that Mac Valley had changed coaches as well.
Yeah. Scott Monk was there for a year, and then they've got a new guy this year, and I think Mac Valley is going to be sneaky good again. I know Lance McShane's gone, but they've got their quarterback returning and some pretty good pieces, and I think they're going to be right there with Starmont in that Class A district, whatever number it is, race. So, just kind of. I guess before we move on, JJ, you had the lead story today, the 3A story. You had something on Brent Yankovic, and I think that's another program that could be knocking on the door for something big this year. And lo and behold, they've got a biggie this week at Western Dubuque.
Yeah, huge game, right? Ryan King takes over. He was an assistant for Coach Wink, Doug Winkowicz, who. Where is he at? ADM? Is that right?
Yeah.
Does that sound right? He's got grown children out in the Des Moines area, right? Correct? If I remember right. So Wink did a great job, and he decided to move a little closer to family. And Coach King comes in with a pretty loaded situation. When you look at Yankovic is just over 3,000 yards passing and throwing last year. And West Delaware had just over 4,000 as a team. So I'm not good at math, but I think that's like 3/4 of the offense came from him. So
yeah.
And he's a tough cookie, as KJ knows from wrestling. He's a really good baseball player that he wants. And I think that's the sport he wants to pursue in college. But it's not just him. They have a lot of linemen back. They've got some skill guys back to go along with Yankovic. A new coach. I think, KJ, you mentioned this earlier. Mark Atwater's there helping out, the former Dyersville Beckman coach. And Linmar Allstater. He's certainly, I would think, would help Yankovic too as a quarterback tutor. He's played that position, kind of the same type of player, right? Dual threat, running back, quarterback, a running quarterback type of a situation. So, I think the Hawks are really going to be good, and it'll be really interesting with Western Dubuque in this first game. They lost, Grant Glasser, who had an unbelievable season last season for them, rushing the football. We'll see where the offense is going to come from. I guess from the Bobcats this season. We'll find out some Friday night.
Yeah.
Well, with Western Dubuque, they return some very, very dominant and key people up front. Garrett Kleesner certainly comes to mind there. Tanner Anderson ranked among the leaders throwing the ball at quarterback. It'll be interesting. I believe Brett Harris was planning on returning. He had a heck of a freshman campaign, unable to play last year, but given a go. So they've got some athletes. They've got some individuals that, certainly can kind of pick up where they left off a year ago.
Right. And one last thing, when we're talking about West Delaware, 3A is our deepest class, don't you think? As far as teams in our area, we've got five of the Gazette area's top 6 teams from our preseason poll are kind of those WAMAC teams with Williamsburg and Solon and West Delaware and Mount Vernon and Independence. I mean, there's going to be some great games among those 5 teams this year.
Absolutely. And what were you saying in 4A? Our area only has five schools in it. Is that accurate, Jeff?
Probably. Xavier, Decorah, Western Dubuque, and then who else we got? Clear Creek
and Marion.
That might be it.
That's all that I saw when I was going over the our 5 players to watch.
Oh yeah,
at the pool of athletes, whether it be right or wrong, try to spread that out as much as possible, and then realizing, we only have 5 teams to really pull players from.
Right. As far as this week's concerned, just kind of go through the list of the Metro Iowa City games first. We'll just zip through it. Kennedy's at West Des Moines Dowling. They play that at Valley. City High goes over into Illinois and plays Joliet Catholic, which was the Class 5A state runner-up in Illinois. Prairie's at Cedar Falls. They'll christen the new outdoor on-campus field there at Cedar Falls this week. Regina's at West Liberty. Waverly Shell Rock, which I think is going to be a lot better this year after going 3-6 last year, is at Cedar Rapids Xavier. I think that could be a really good game. Clear Creek Romana at Marion. We talked about that a little bit. I think that's kind of a key game, and how both of those team seasons will go. Iowa City West and Iowa City Liberty, both teams are 4-5, and both teams probably think they really could use that first one. Muscatine's at Jefferson, Washington's at Hempstead, Dubuque Seniors at Linmar, and then a couple games I noted right off the bat: West Delaware at Western Dubuque, and then a team that I think is going to be sneaky good this year is North Fayette Valley, and they play at Independence. So, what stands out, to you guys with any of those?
Huge game for Kennedy. It'd be interesting to see. I know Coach Brian White thinks he's got a really, really good team. I think he's got a really, really good team. With what Vinny Gianforte back at quarterback, I think they've got a chance to be a really high scoring offense, and lost the big lineman Nick Brooks, went back to Georgia after 1 year at Kennedy, and just committed to University of Texas, former Iowa commit. But I think Kennedy's going to be really good. So it's really kind of an interesting statement game, because we all know Dowling's going to be really good, and Dowling's always really good. And then Prairie too. Prairie's got. I talked to Coach Knock. They have 91 kids, sophomore through senior. on that roster. And the freshman class, apparently, he said, is even bigger. So they're going to have over 100 kids next season expected on the varsity, sophomore through senior. So really kind of a what you got kind of game for Prairie, at Cedar Falls. That one really intrigues me, I guess, just off the top. And KJ, I'm interested to see what Jefferson can do. Muscatine on Friday night. You're going to be there out at Kingston Stadium. What, the Jayhawks 4-0 last season to start out with, and then didn't win a game after that. So how do you how will they handle another losing streak, I guess, and can they handle success?
Well, see, and that's one of the things that kind of interests me. They went down to Muscatine and got a big state, or not necessarily a statement win, but that was a big win for that program, and it really kind of propelled them into a manageable or a winnable stretch for them. Now we'll see if they can take that next step to where these are games that it's not can they win or will they win, it's by how much will they win and what will they be able to do during that game that's going to propel them and for them to build on kind of going forward to where that schedule gets tougher and they become more of a complete team. That's what I'm looking forward to just kind of see where they're at and how they've improved over the off season to not just kind of beat up on lower teams, but be a top team for 9 weeks, if that makes sense.
I think they've got 6 games on their schedule that are winnable for them. And they probably with the way this RPI works, they're probably going to have to win 6 to get in.
Really get all of them?
Because their opponents in win-loss and opponents win-loss are probably going to be pretty
low,
pretty bad. So they're probably going to have to win 6 to get in.
And I'm really, I think that Iowa City West Liberty game, I think that's going to be a big barometer for both of those programs. I think that's really going to show kind of where they're at and maybe sure up some questions or answer some questions that might be surrounding each team. But I think that's a really good gauge for both of those teams right out of the gate. I'm looking forward to that one.
Who you guys playing this? Who are you covering this week, both of you?
I got Muscatine Jeff at Kingston.
I will be at I'll be at Saints Field for Waverly and Xavier. So I think we might have lost JJ there for a second.
And JJ will be out at Marion for the Clear Creek Amana Marion games.
Gotcha.
As well.
Anything else you want to touch on, KJ, until JJ hopefully comes back?
Well, do we want to touch on some of the questions that we got from social media?
Yeah. Let me take a look at that.
One of them here right out of the gate, Josh at Joshua Peak asked if there was any hope for Wash or Jeff to be competitive.
I think Jefferson's going to be competitive. I think Washington will probably be a little better this year. I think you would know better about both of those than I would, so I'll let you have the floor.
Well, I would just talk about Jefferson. I think certainly we saw what Ed Miles was able to do last year in his coaching staff. I think another year of having things implemented and having an off season. Jeff, you mentioned the 6 wins. I think that's something that is certainly doable for them. And I think, the way their schedule shakes out, there are a lot of winnable games for them. So I think they'll be really competitive. Wash, it's just going to be interesting to see how the things go with the new coaching staff. I think Eric Addy's trying to build a little bit of a culture there.
Washington's schedule is a lot less forgiving than Jefferson's. So they go at Hempstead, at Lindmar, Davenport West at home. Then they got Kennedy, and then Jeff, and then they finish with Liberty and West and Senior and Ankeny. So
things are going to be a lot tougher for Washington than their West Side counterparts. But it'll be interesting to see how that East-West battle September 27th will pan out. But Jefferson, I believe, had wins against Muscatine, Marshalltown, North and East last year. They've got Davenport Central later in the season as well, and that's a winnable game at Kingston. You've got Iowa City West, Prairie, and Liberty, which are tough games. But you mentioned the 6-win plateau is something they'll probably need to get, and I think it's within their reach.
Yeah. We got another question. Best Area 5A team and the most underrated Area 5A team.
Oh, I think without a doubt, the two best Area 5A teams are City High and Kennedy. Those two coming in, you've got really good quarterbacks. You've got good athletes on both sides of the ball. City High has Bobby Bacon at quarterback. JJ mentioned Kennedy's Vinny Vincenzo there. You've got a really good running back in Doyle. City High will have to replace some skill guys in the backfield with Miles Parlett. Graduated, I believe. And some of the receivers, but City High. So I don't want to hear City High people talk about, oh, nobody respected us or nobody thought we'd be any good this year. They're one of the best teams around. Kennedy is too. I think the underrated one is Lindmar.
I think so too.
I think that's the team that has a lot of potential.
Yeah,
I
think so too.
All that?
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think by the end of the year, Lindmar might be able to make an argument that they might be the best Area 5A team, but we'll find out because they play Kennedy in week 3, and we'll learn a lot more about them then. They should come into that game 2-0 like they did last year. But
and I'll be interested to see how Prairie reloads.
Yeah,
a little bit. I think they're really high on those newcomers from like the sophomore level. They've got some good athletes there, so we'll see what getting some in-game reps do for them as the weeks go along.
Yeah, I think we could have a lot of teams that are pushing. Let me putting teams into tiers. I don't know if there's a top 5 to 6 team in the state, in the area in 5A. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a lot of teams that could be in the mix between 5, maybe 6 and getting into the playoffs.
Yep.
I think Kennedy's going to make it. I think City High will make it. I think Lindmar will make it. Prairie, are they, which side of the, 16 side do they finish up on? Iowa City West, Iowa City Liberty. And that's why I think that I don't want to say West Liberty. I'll say Liberty West game because I don't want to confuse it with that school in Muscatine County. But I think that game's just a really big game this week. I think Liberty and West are two teams that their floor might be 4 and 5, and their ceiling might be, 7 and 2. I just don't know. It's just going to come down to who can win, the coin flip games throughout the season. Right. And I'll say the same thing for Prairie. I think this is a really big game for them this week.
Yep. And Cedar Falls.
Well, go ahead.
Well, sorry, I got kicked off.
Prairie Prairie knocked off Cedar Falls last year during this week. So Cedar Falls is going to be kind of conjuring up the memories of that upset. But anyway, sorry, JJ. Thanks for coming back.
Computer issues. So
we were talking about. We got a tweet just asking who we thought the best Gazette Area 5A team would be and who's the most underrated. KJ and I are both in agreement that the most underrated is probably Linmar.
Yep.
And the best team would probably be Kennedy or City, and I threw Linmar in with that mix too.
I'm down with that rationale. So, did we have other questions from Twitter?
Yeah, we had another one. What was the other one? We already answered it.
Okay.
Someone asked the thoughts on Iowa City West running the table.
Don't see that happening.
No. I don't know if I see anybody in Eastern Iowa in 5A running the table.
No.
Just because I think they're not only are some of the better teams facing top teams in the state or even Illinois, but you've got teams clumped together, right? That are pretty similar in ability. And when you look at West having to play Iowa City Liberty, Urbandale, City High, Ankeny, Pleasant Valley, Prairie, you think they'd be able to get wins against Muscatine, maybe Jefferson and Wash as well. But being able to run the table, that's a titanic chore, I think, with some of the teams that they have on their schedule.
If they run the table, Garrett Hartwig is the Gazette Area Coach of the Year. I mean, that would be a heck of an achievement. I'm not sure any of those teams will run the table in Iowa City among Liberty, West, and City. I think all three might beat each other.
Oh, they could.
So
they could.
We had one here. Any hope for Wash or Jeff to be competitive? Did we?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. What do you want to weigh in on that? I think, we talked about Jeff's schedule lending itself to them being competitive.
Yep.
I think Washington's going to win more than one game this year, so I think they'll be a little bit better. Any thoughts on either of those, JJ?
Yeah, I think if Jefferson could get a winning season, I think that would be considered a great season. Could it be the first one in I don't know how many years? And that's highly achievable. And Washington, I think this first year with Coach Addy is just about a culture change, and we'll see. On the field if that comes to any fruition. So.
Just a heads up, Jefferson's last winning season was 2015.
Okay.
When they went 8-3.
Very good.
That was a good team.
Last year they had 4 wins. They did the same in 2019 and 2017.
Okay.
But that 2015 season was when we had Jefferson, Kennedy, and Wash all make the playoffs for the first time in like 30 or 40 years.
That was the year that Jefferson played there
Ash Park.
At Ash Park in the first game of a playoff doubleheader there. So,
and there was that the year too that Kennedy and Wash both had a playoff doubleheader at Kingston.
Yeah, I think they were both at Kingston that day.
Yeah,
because there was talk that there would be a triple header, and that obviously didn't happen. So,
that's right. I remember that now.
Yeah,
amazing.
So, all right. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we sign off?
Well, I just want to answer the one question that Aaron Rooney, our friend of the podcast, favorite football concession stand. I know there isn't a concession stand like Jefferson softball, but is there a place that you guys go to that has a notable treat or anything like that?
Boy, let me think here. It's got to be somebody in a smaller, right, Jeff? That maybe fires up the grill and
yeah. I mean, if somebody has the Delaware County pork producers working the grill or something like that, and that they've got a leg up on the competition.
You know, I always think back to Dyersville covering. I want to say it was maybe Dyersville in North Fayette Valley, and they had turkey dressing sandwiches.
Oh, that's right.
At the concession stand.
That's right.
That one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
I don't know if Dyersville still does it, but if Beckman still does it, that'd be one to get if you're ever checking out a game there.
All right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back into the high school facility popcorn. So let's go.
I had my first one last night at Kennedy for volleyball. So.
Always good popcorn.
It was all right. It was all right. We'll give it a B.
Okay.
I heard they got a new popcorn machine and they're still trying to work out the kinks.
Oh boy, that disappoints me because they're always top-notch popcorn. So
yeah,
I'll have to give them some tutorial.
Get back up there.
So, all right. Well, I think we'll call it a day. Hopefully the weather cools down here a little bit between now and Friday. I think it will, so we don't have to worry about the wet bulb or whatever it's called. But we'll be back next week, and we'll watch for our report in the Green Gazette on Friday for Saturday, and we'll have a rewind as well. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.